Okay, so I've now got all my text boxes, all the type sitting nice and neatly along that bottom margin. Okay, so I've also put in my folio. So Vogue has a very simple folio. It's just the page number. And I've just followed just from that one page. So it just says page 79, and I've just followed the font and the size based on my chosen magazine. Okay, so if we zoom out of there, so that's starting to look pretty good. I've also just put in my credit as well, so make sure you include the credits. Okay, so looking at that, that's looking quite good. I'd like to add a couple more details just to give a bit more interest to the page. First thing I'm going to do though is looking at this headline. I think that can do with a little bit of kerning. I think we can just reduce the space a little bit between the R and the U, the R and the E, and the C and the A. So a couple of ways to do that. If we just choose the type tool over here, and we put our cursor between the C and the A first. In your character panel, so again, if your character panel is not visible, you go to Window, Type and Tables, and just choose character. Shortcut is Command T. So we just put the cursor there. And this is your kerning panel here, this one. So it's the A and the V with the alternate arrows top and bottom. And we can just click on that either way and give it either more or less space. The other way of doing it is pressing Option and your arrow keys, and that also moves it around. Okay, so we're just going to bring that in a little bit there, and that visually just gives that less space because you've got a lot of space in the C here, so visually it looks like there's a lot more space between the two characters, the two letters. So we're just going to do the same for the R and the E, just reduce that a little bit, and then the R and the U, just reduce that a tiny bit. Right, and there we go. So I think that looks pretty good. So the next thing I want to do, I just want to add in a drop cap. Vogue does on some of its pages use drop caps, and I think it's a nice element to add to your layout. So I'm just going to select that first letter, and in your paragraph panel in the top right menu, we're just going to select drop caps and nested styles. So I just want to do a drop cap over 4 lines, just the first character. And if you want to see how that looks, you just click on this preview box, and that will immediately show you how your drop cap looks. If you want it on 4 lines or 5 lines, or maybe you just want it on 3 lines, depending on your magazine. So I'm just going to change that letter. I might change that to a Times italic, just to follow the same font as the headline. Possibly to a Times regular. Yeah, I think I prefer the Times regular. Again, I mean, look at what your magazine uses and just try and follow the font from there. So there we have the drop cap, we have the headline. The headline's eating in a little bit to that shadow, so what I'm going to do is just move that down a little bit to give that a bit more space. Actually, no, I think I preferred it up there. So another thing you can do is just adjust that image. You can recrop it. So the way to recrop the image within your image mask, you can either use the direct select tool, this white arrow, click on the image, and the image is where the red box is, so you can then increase that. The other way of doing it is in your normal selection tool, just clicking on that circle in the middle, and that will give you your image selection, and you can just play around with the cropping of that image. So that's giving me a little bit more space now for that headline. Okay, so we've got most of the elements. I think there's just one other element that I'd like to include, which is if you have chosen a section of a magazine, you can go ahead and include that in your layout. So in Vogue, they have a section called Viewpoint. So I'm just going to bring that in, and I can just see that that sits just in that margin space. It's all caps. It says Viewpoint. I think they use a Times, and it's just about a column width. So let's go ahead and type that. Just do a text box. Viewpoint. I'll just show my guides. So I'm just going to bring that up into the margin space. I think they use the Times regular. Just going to increase that. Actually, I think they use the Dido. Dido looks a little bit closer to the font. It's not the exact font that they're using, but I think it has a similar weight. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the Dido font. Because it sits over here, I'm just going to, in the paragraph, make that range right, or align right. And actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to increase that image so it actually goes into the margins here. Again, all these details, it's going to be based on the elements of your magazine. So I'm just going to increase that a little bit. Just adjust that. That viewpoint's getting a little bit lost behind there, so I'm just going to highlight that text box. I'm going to go to my swatches panel. Again, if your swatches is not showing, just go to Window, Color, and just choose your swatches. And you've got a few different ways of coloring things here. You want to click on the Type tool, or the Type icon, the little T. Click on that, so that shows that that's black. So we just want to make that paper, which is basically just white. And, you know, depending on what color your image is, you'll either have it black or white. So I think the white works. Just reversed out of the image. And I think that looks pretty good. That's pretty much finished. So we've got all the different elements to the magazine. Now I'm going to do this as an image heavy layout. So because the first thing I look at when I look at that layout is the image. I think the size of the image in proportion to the headline and the body copy, the text. To me, this is an image-heavy layout. So when we talk about the different layouts, whether it's headline-heavy or image-heavy, I know you've got to work with a lot of body copy. So it's more of a perception of what constitutes an image-heavy layout or a headline-heavy layout, and it's more visually when you look at it. You're going to give emphasis to either one or the other, even though you are using quite a lot of copy. But to me, this is a good example of an image-heavy layout. Now, one thing I've just noticed is that when I put my drop cap in, that has just increased the copy. So now I haven't got all the copy included. So what I'm going to do is just on this first column, just bring that up a little bit. Yeah, and there we've just got enough space now to include all the copy. One last thing I'm going to put in. Vogue, quite often with their articles, they just have a little square at the end of the last paragraph, and that just indicates the end of the article. So, and that is literally just a square. So you choose your rectangle tool. I've drawn a square. I go to my swatches. I choose the fill and black. Just reduce that in size a tiny bit. And I'm just going to bring that into the end of the paragraph. Just make it a touch smaller. Okay, so the other thing that this layout has actually is a little caption, and that uses, it's all caps, it's sans serif, so I'm just going to grab a little bit of copy from here and draw a text box. I'm going to paste that copy. Its range or align left. I'm going to use a Century Gothic regular. Now, it's not all caps, so there's an easy way to change this copy to all caps. You just go up to your type menu, and then there's a function here called change case. So I'm just going to make it all uppercase. I'm going to go to the swatches panel. I'm going to click on the type tool, the T, and I'm going to make that white, although that's getting a little bit lost in there. So actually I'm just going to keep that black. You can still read the text. It's looking a little bit big at the moment. I think that's a lot smaller, this text here. So at the moment it's a 10 point. I'm going to bring it down to about an 8 point. There, and that looks pretty good. So there's my finished magazine layout. So that's based on a Vogue grid. That is my image-heavy layout. And you can see it's nothing too crazy. You know, I think when you're starting, just try something quite simple, something that's similar to maybe one of the reference pages. But then as you go along, maybe try something a little bit more adventurous.